Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. After plenty of discussion and careful study, Oklahoma producers and landowners are in decision-making mode. Of course, we're talking about the Farm Bill. We begin today with SUNUP's Dave Deacon and our ag economist, Eric DeVeest.
Decisions are being made about the 2014 Farm Bill and what programs to sign up for, and OSU has helped create a tool for that. And Eric, kind of talk about what the Farm Bill tool is.
Well, the Farm Bill tool was developed to help producers understand, under different yield and price scenarios, what they will get for payments. In short, what we're trying to do is help them look at what is the safety net that's available to them under each of these alternatives. And as you've talked before, there's the ARC County program, there's the ARC Individual program, the Price Loss Coverage program, PLC, and then there's also, they can do a SCO, it's a shallow loss crop insurance program they can do with PLC. So we build a tool that helps producers go through and say, if I enroll in this program and these are the yields and prices that occur, what does my payments look like? And what we're encouraging people to do is say, all right, under a wide range of yield and price forecasts, can I endure given the payment levels that will come out with this program option? So we want them to look at all the different combinations and prices and yields that they can think of. So with the tool, they have to come in with the same information they're going to go into the FSA office. They got to have their yield history, and they've got to have their payment yields. Of course, FSA will help with that. The program will help take them through a decision whether they should do a reallocation. And so as we know, we can reallocate base, we can't create, and so we can reallocate base, and it takes them through the yield update, because the payment yields can be updated this year. And so it'll take them through that, and the program's actually going to compute their payments under their current yield allocation and then under the yield update. And so it'll show the combinations of the reallocation versus the current base and the updated yield. Then they have to enter a lot of information here about future yields and prices. If they can forecast those, they probably shouldn't be farming. They could make far more money in the markets. And so the program helps them with some forecasts. So we've got to forecast both individual yields, and we've got to forecast county level yields. We've got to forecast prices. And so the tool will help them by first saying, all right, I just want to use the mean yield from the last 5 years, and the tool will plug that in. I want to use a 5-year linear time trend, the tool will plug that in for them. But we encourage them not to stop there, because those are going to be kind of midpoint values. We want them to go, what happens if yields are low? What happens if prices are low? What happens if yields and prices are low? And calculate the payments under each one of those options, because as we've talked about, it's really complex.
And this is a 5-year decision that you're making, you know, in less than a month.
Yeah, and so as Dr. Campeacci has told repeatedly, and will again today, we've got deadlines looming. You're on the hook for at least 5 years. We potentially could get an extension at the end of 5 years, as Congress seems to fight over these things for a considerable time before they actually do something. So you might be in this program for even longer. So what you sign up for is going to be at least 5 years. It might even be 6 or 7 years.
There actually are system requirements for this program too.
Right. The tool is programmed in Excel, and there's a programming language under it called VBA. So you have to run this tool in Excel 2007 or newer. It does not run on Macs. That's our biggest question that people get. Unless they have a dual boot system and they boot up under Windows, it's not going to work for them. There are open source code versions of Office products out there. Those don't work with this either. It's got to be Excel. We program for the most common environment, and that's a Microsoft Office product.
We'll show you how that decision tool calculator works a little later in the show. But first, a snapshot of Oklahoma agriculture and how it's changing with Extension economist Damona Doi. She begins by defining what a farm is according to the USDA.
Farm is a place where the agricultural production in a normal year would have valued about $1,000, and so it includes many small or part-time operations.
In terms of Oklahoma in general, what are some of the highlights of what you've been looking at?
Like the U.S., our farm numbers were down. The U.S. numbers were down about 3%. We lost about 7% of our farm numbers. The average age inched up to about 58.3 years, so our population is aging as it has in the U.S. About 90% of the operations are individual farm families. In addition, some of the partnerships and incorporated operations are also family farms. So you hear about big ag, but in fact, agriculture in general is more family farm.
In terms of the business of farming, we've seen an increase in livestock and crop profits. How does that compare, though, to expenses?
So certainly the expenses were up in almost all categories since 2007. And so it was not only fertilizer and chemicals, rents, utilities, really across the board. But as you say, the sales were up dramatically as well. And so with high cattle prices, with high crop prices, we had nearly $6.7 billion in sales in Oklahoma. A large part of our sales are cattle and calves, where most of our operations are beef operations, and so cattle and calves explain about 39% of our total. After that, it was in 2012, it was winter wheat, and some years it's poultry and some years it's hogs, depending on prices and depending on whether we have a wheat crop or not.
Let's talk about demographics and kind of how that's playing into the picture.
A couple of interesting things compared to recent surveys. Even though our farm numbers were down, we had a bit of increase in terms of the diversity of farm operators, and that there's a few more African American, more Asian, more Native American farm operators. I mentioned the increase in the average age, so if you dig into those statistics, so about 60% of the operators have say that their primary occupation is something other than agriculture. So even though they're responding to the Census of Ag, they have other occupations, so they work off farm. If you look at the age statistics of those 40% who say farming is their primary occupation, almost half of them are over 65. If you add in the 55 to 65 year age bracket, you add another 25%. So in Oklahoma, we're looking at 3/4 of our operators who consider themselves farmers as their primary occupation are over age 55.
So that could have lasting impact, obviously, and kind of plays into why we need to study some of this information in the first place.
Right, so I think if you think about the structure of agriculture going ahead, it's important to identify both opportunities and challenges. And so if you're concerned about the future of agriculture, want to make sure that there are young people to continue, then we have to help older operators think about how to transition not only the assets but also management of operations, and we need to make sure that the policies are in place to help do that.
Okay, Damona Doi, thank you very much. And for a closer look at the latest Census of Ag, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. A week of warm days has really pushed wheat first hollow stem forward. The time to check for first hollow stem for varieties in the early group was reached on Tuesday for locations in the green areas. It was past time for fields in the yellow and orange areas for early first hollow stem. Fields in the red areas should have cattle removed if the wheat is going to be harvested for grain. For wheat varieties in the middle first hollow stem group, fields in and near Carter County were at the stage to be checked on Tuesday. For varieties in the late group, we have some time to go. If you're wondering which group your wheat is in, click on the link in the variety selection box. It will pull up a list of varieties that you can scroll through. These days we appreciate every drop of rain that falls. Checking on the percent of plant available water from the surface down to 16 inches, fields in the dark green areas have good moisture in the upper soil levels. Adding deeper soil moisture for the percent of plant available water from the surface to 32 inches, the western third of Oklahoma really comes up short for deeper soil moisture. Here's Gary with the latest on Oklahoma's drought picture.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everybody. I hope you've been enjoying these spring-like temperatures we've had over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Unfortunately, the drought likes those types of temperatures way too much. So let's take a look at the latest U.S. drought monitor. So all that warmth and more importantly, the lack of rainfall has continued further drought intensification across Oklahoma. And we continue to see drought develop to the east of I-35, but also intensify in the western parts of the state. So now most of the western two-thirds of the state is in at least severe to even exceptional drought, so the worst categories on the U.S. drought monitor. And the eastern half runs from the moderate drought, or the D1 lowest level of drought, to abnormally dry, that yellow. And that yellow signifies areas that are going into drought, not coming out of drought. So it's something to watch across eastern Oklahoma now. Speaking of rainfall, take a look at the Mesonet total since October 1st. Pretty pathetic in some areas, especially in the northwestern quarter and also far southwestern Oklahoma, where less than 4 inches is basically the norm for the last 4 months. And in northwestern Oklahoma, from Ellis County up through Woods County, they've had less than 3 inches in some areas. So really dry out in that area. And that also shows up as less than 60% of normal for that time frame in the percent of normal map from the Mesonet, at least since October 1st. Now some areas have had above normal rainfall, so those are the few lucky out in the Panhandle, down in south central, and also far northeastern Oklahoma. But unfortunately, just recently, the last 30 days or so, we are starting to dry out again. And so drought is once again intensifying across Oklahoma. So now we're exiting February here in a couple of weeks, and we're going to start to enter the warm season. And we need that spring rainfall to come through in a big way and help us get out of drought. Finally, after 4+ years of drought, we're actually into our 5th year, we need a good spring. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, joins us now. And Kim, the latest supply and demand numbers were released this week.
Yeah, the WASDE report was no surprise. The released estimates were right along what the market was expecting. You look at all wheat ending stocks up 5 million bushels, that's insignificant. Hard red winter wheat ending stocks up 15 million, that's semi-significant but no impact. Corn down 50 million bushels, but when you've got 1.9 billion ending stocks, that's insignificant. And soybeans were down 20 million, and again, not much impact on the market.
And then how are the export markets looking this week?
You look at the wheat exports, all wheat are right at expectations at 24% less than last year. You look at hard red winter wheat exports, they're about 37% lower than last year. USDA's estimates is at 34%. So they're both relatively close to where we'd expect them to be.
Let's take a look at wheat now. How are prices looking this week?
The wheat prices are just wandering around. I think they're waiting for the wheat to come out of dormancy. You know, looking at what's going on around the world, India, Pakistan, those harvests will start next month. And I think the market's just kind of waiting. They're watching that Kansas City July price. I think at critical points is around 555. If it breaks that, then it might run down to around 535, 540. On the upside, you want it to break 576 to start an uptrend.
And finally, you've been on the road this week to Texas. Tell us how the wheat was looking down that direction.
Looks relatively good. In Oklahoma, you'd expect it to be dry, but the wheat looks like it's wintered relatively well. You get down to Wichita Falls area, they've got moisture down there, and they're very optimistic about the wheat crop. Right now, I'd say that this wheat crop, even though it's semi-dry, it's got some good prospects for the 2015 year.
Okay, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Last week on the CowCalf Corner, we visited with you about the timing of pulling that backwards calf. Well, any calf that needs some assistance at calving time One of the critical things is to remember to get him or her started breathing as soon as possible after delivery. There's many different methods that people have used through the years. Some of them I think are actually counterproductive. Some of those include the idea of putting a calf up over a fence rail and hanging him head down. That one I think is counterproductive because it tends to pinch off the diaphragm, which is the muscle that we have to have that calf actually expand in order to bring air into his lungs. So I think that's one that we don't want to use. Some people like to lift the calf up by the hind legs and hold him for a little bit. Probably not too bad, except that the fluids that drain out are probably coming out of the digestive tract rather than out of the respiratory tract or the lungs. The thing that I really think is the best and the simplest way to get a calf started breathing is to, once you get that calf out, find a real stiff straw laying around real close to you and put that straw in his nose and tickle him real good. This particular video gives you a good idea of what happens when you tickle that calf's nose. You'll see that the flank area of the calf really jerks and expands. That's the diaphragm muscle pulling away from the lungs, expanding those lungs, and letting that calf bring in oxygen so that he can start that breathing process. Don't be a bit surprised if once you get a calf started breathing that he pants real heavily for several minutes. That's a good thing because he's trying to correct that respiratory acidosis that's been created by the arduous delivery process. I think if you'll keep this idea in mind of using that straw and tickling that calf's nose, you'll get them started breathing real simply, real easily, and perhaps save just a few more calves. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's CowCalf Corner.
To talk more about that Farm Bill decision tool calculator, we're joined by Jody Campeacci, our ag policy specialist. And Jody, if I'm a producer just getting started, kind of give us some idea of how this decision tool works.
Okay, well, I'll just kind of walk you through a little example here. So it's just kind of a step-by-step thing. Once you get your information from the FSA office, including your production history, your crop insurance yields, and all the other information that you need, you just go to this tool. And I'm going to kind of walk through an example. I just pulled up Oklahoma and Woods County, but just to kind of show you, you click on the buttons, select your state, and select Oklahoma. You select your crops, so you click on this button here. I selected winter wheat, and you just kind of keep scrolling down. Put in your farm APH here, your current base acreage, your FSA yield, your reallocated base. On this step, to reallocate your base acreage, you would actually, if you kind of hover over it with your mouse, you'll see pop-up boxes, and it says press double click to use a worksheet to calculate, and I'll just kind of show how that pops up. You would enter your farm's historical yields here, your planted acres. Once that's done, it'll give you this is what you could reallocate your base to. Here's your current FSA yield, and in this example, the current one's 35, the updated is 36.5, so the updated is higher. You would want to update. It's pretty simple. You just have to have your crop insurance yield history to plug that in. Click on the button that says return to the start page, and we just kind of keep working our way down. You go to planted acres, you enter your planted acres for 2014 to 2018. Here on the prices, you can either go ahead and just enter your own for prices 2014 to 2018, or you can just double click right here and it'll take you to this page. And again, you just double click again and it'll enter the FAPRI price forecast. And of course, these are just forecasts. Are they going to be that actual price in 15, 16, 17, and 18? No. No one knows exactly what the prices are, but this is, if you don't want to enter your own, you just go ahead and use these just to see what happens. What I encourage is go in and put some high prices in and put some low prices in. So let's say, 2016, you think the price is going to be $4.85. So you just type it in, and then you hit done. It'll take you back to this page, and instead of having that previous price that that was part of the forecast. Now you have 485, which was the number you entered. So you can just go into each of the years, enter different prices, high, low, and kind of see what happens.
So you just kind of play around with it, like you said, and kind of get a picture to help you make a more informed decision.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it's used for. You just kind of put some of your farm information in, and it's kind of the easiest way to kind of understand some of the complex programs.
Tell us about the results page.
So the results page just kind of takes everything that we just looked at individually, but it sums it all up. So you're looking at payments from 2014 to 2018, so for Ark County, PLC, and SCO, and then it kind of tells you, okay, based on the information that you entered, what would be the option that would be best under these price and yield scenarios? Which one would yield the highest net present value? So you can scroll down and also see just a simple little chart that shows it, but that's pretty much it.
Okay, and wheat yields for counties, you have those numbers now.
Yes, so NASS released their preliminary estimates of county wheat yields, and that's the number that will eventually be used to calculate the Ark County payments on wheat for each of the counties. Now, it's not the final number. The FSA office actually takes those NASS yields and adjust them for failed acres, which means that the yield usually goes down. So we already have a pretty good estimate, and most Oklahoma counties are triggering the maximum Ark County payment on wheat for 2014. But producers have to keep in mind that they're signing up for the life of the Farm Bill, and the payments in a lot of counties are pretty small. So they really want to evaluate PLC and SCO as compared to, maybe that 2014 Ark County payment, and PLC may still be the better option for them under certain price and yield scenarios.
We have some decision deadlines coming up. Remind us of those dates again.
So the first deadline's coming up on February 27th, which is pretty soon, and that's the base reallocation and the yield update. After that, we have, as far as the FSA programs, March 31st, the decision to elect ARC or PLC. We also have some crop insurance deadlines coming up, and those are March 15th. And we'll have some new decisions because SCO is now available for the spring crops. So producers of spring crops who are buying insurance may want to look at SCO. Also, cotton producers now have the option to choose stacks versus SCO, the crop insurance programs. And it's really important for producers to look at which one is best for their farm.
And it's going to be a busy spring for you and the team, holding meetings and workshops to help farmers through this. Talk about those meetings, what's planned.
So we have a lot of decision tool workshops set up across Oklahoma, and we have a link on our Farm Bill page. It's just, we'll have computer labs set up. Producers can come in, bring their data, and get help entering it into the tool because, even if you're familiar with computers, some of this is still kind of confusing. So if you need help, come on into the labs, just look at our schedule. And if you don't see one in your area, contact your local county extension educator and request some help.
Okay, great. Well, have a great spring and good luck with all these meetings. Thanks. Jody, thank you. And for a link to the decision tool calculator and to find out more about the meetings, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
The big cattle inventory numbers are out from 2014 and on into 2015, and we have Daryl Peel to go through those numbers. Daryl, what did you find?
Well, this report showed that there was a herd expansion in 2014. That was expected after many years of liquidation. At least for 1 year, we put a stop to it. Yeah. The all cattle inventory was up about 1% from a year ago. Beef cows were up about 2%. Beef replacement heifers were up about 4%. The calf crop for 2014 was up about 1% as well. And that led to about a 1% increase in feeder cattle supplies as we go into 2015 here.
Were there any surprises in this report?
Well, the report was generally anticipated, I think, in that some level of expansion. It was a little bit more aggressive expansion than was expected, particularly with respect to the beef cow herd. It was up 2.1%. From January 2014 to January 2015. That's bigger than expected, so it suggests that we got off to a quicker start in some sense. The fact that the calf crop was up 1%, it was actually expected generally to be down slightly, 0.5 to 1%, and so that gives us this slight increase in feeder supplies. Not big surprises for the most part, but nothing that really changes the story here in the short term, but a little bit more aggressive than we expected.
Now you've been talking national numbers. Let's bring that down to Oklahoma. What did you find in the report?
You know, in Oklahoma, the beef cow number for the second year in a row was up sharply. It was up nearly 6% from 2013 to 2014. It was up another 6% in 2014 to 2015. And so it makes it one of the largest increases among states. The beef replacement heifer number was also up sharply a year ago in terms of 2013. It was up sharply as of January 2015, about a 25% year-over-year increase, suggesting that Oklahoma is one of the places, along with Texas, where expansion seems to be happening very quickly.
Now, do you feel comfortable saying that we're rebuilding the herd yet?
Well, we certainly are rebuilding or attempting to rebuild, and we got to start on that in 2014. I think the question of whether we can sustain that is still very much up in the air. Drought conditions could jump back up here and preempt this again. You know, it was really drought from 2011 through 2013 that caused liquidation, and it could certainly come back at this point. So we're ready to expand, we're trying to expand, and we did it for 1 year. The question remains whether we can sustain that going forward here in 2015.
What does the whole report mean to the state and the country?
Well, in terms of the markets, you know, the market impacts of this report, I guess, it really doesn't change things in my mind very much for 2015. You know, there was, again, a slight increase in the feeder cattle supplies, but it really doesn't change the fact that overall cattle numbers are still very, very tight. The aggressive herd expansion that's underway will continue to, you know, divert heifers from feeder use and current consumption into breeding use, and so it's sort of what we expected. You know, the fact that the cow herd jumped 2% rather than something less than 1% might suggest 3 or 4 years down the road that we get to the numbers we need to be if we can sustain expansion, you know, perhaps 1 year sooner than we thought. So it might change our outlook a little bit towards the end of the decade, but really not very much before then. And overall, it confirms what we thought was happening, and we continue on from here.
Okay, Daryl Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime online at sunup.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.